Hello friends, Buddy here at House of Props, and I just finished these Obi-Wan inspired compact macro binoculars, and I'm going to show you the steps that I used to make them. Let's get started. Like many of my 3D designs, I created the binoculars in AutoCAD. AutoCAD is mainly used as an engineering software, which is beneficial when creating Greebles or gadgets like this. When I create the pieces, I break the object down into different shapes and use a variety of colors in order to help me keep all these individual shapes organized. I also use CAD to create my templates. There's a link in the below description where you can download the 3D files and this template. I printed all the pieces on my Ender 3 Pro. Since some of the pieces are really small, I will often leave them attached to their raft until I'm ready to build. When you're ready, they should just pop right off. While I finish removing the rafts, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell so you can see what will be built on this channel next. Or if you're able to, scan this code so you can have the channel on your phone for when you're on the go. If there's one thing I don't like about 3D printing, it's how you're left with print striations. But through a lot of trial and error, I have found a technique that I believe works really well. I begin by sanding the surface with a 120 grit sandpaper. It is best to sand against the grain of the striations with a circular motion whenever you're able to. You can see how sanding is visible because the PLA that is untouched still has a sheen to it. Just keep sanding until the sheen is removed. After the 120 grit, I will then switch to a 180 grit and repeat the sanding process again. When everything is sanded, there may still be some areas which didn't or can't go as smooth as you would want them to. So I use this glazing and spot putty to help smooth those areas. This stuff is highly toxic, so make sure to follow the manufacturer's safety directions. I use a palette knife to apply a generous layer of the putty on the surface. After the putty has sat to dry for a few hours, I then smooth it with the 180 grit sandpaper. Just like the PLA, you can tell from the surface change what area has been sanded and what still needs sanding. Next, I attach the Greebles to the binocular surface using CA glue. It doesn't have a long working time, so you want to move as quickly as possible. And to speed up the cure time even more once the piece is in place, I use a drop of zip kicker on the glue. To attach the eyepieces, I use a pencil to make an X on the surface on both sides, and where the lines intersect is the center of that surface. The center of the circular opening will be positioned so the X intersection is in the middle of the eyepiece opening and then attached with CA glue. On the bottom of the binoculars, two Greebles get attached near the corners, but I'm going to wait to attach these until I first get a primer coat on the spot putty surface. I will typically use a 2-in-1 filler and sandable primer on my 3D prints because it helps fill in any unsmooth areas and it can be sanded in between each coat. So I'm going to apply one coat and then attach the bottom Greebles. Once the first layer is dry, I sand the surface with the 180 grit sandpaper just to help get a smooth finish. On the bottom, I attach the 2 Greebles with my CA glue, and then I'll apply another 2 coats of primer while sanding after each additional coat. While I wait for the primer to dry, I create the binoculars screen. I trace the template onto a piece of a plastic container lid that I got from the store where everything used to be $1, but now it's $1.25. I then cut the piece out using just a pair of scissors. Once it's trimmed down to the correct shape, I will then spray one side with a glossy black spray paint. It doesn't need to be an expensive paint, so a cheap paint like this will. While the screen dries and the base has had its final spray of primer and been sanded, I then spray the binoculars with a satin black spray paint. To avoid drips and runs, build up coverage by spraying multiple thin even coats until the surface is coated. When all the spray paint is dry, I use a metallic silver acrylic to start giving the prop some history. I use a paper towel to dab the paint onto the surface. This will give us a metal looking finish. I'm only using this technique on the binocular base and not the eyepieces, and it will take about 2 layers to achieve the desired effect. Next, I'm going to use this metallic blue sapphire on this small sphere inside this Greeble. Using jet black, I paint the flat circular base on this Greeble. I tried to avoid when applying the silver, but some silver still ended up on it anyway. So I'm just going to cover up the areas of silver that I don't want. When those layers of acrylic have dried, I start aging the binoculars by applying washes of chestnut brown and burnt umber. I start with the chestnut. You need very little pigment mixed with water to get a natural looking wash. These binoculars have been through the Tatooine desert, so I just want to make them look slightly dirty and dusty. When I'm finished with the chestnut, I switch to the burnt umber. Then I attach the sprayed side of the screen to the front of the base. To do this, I start in the middle by applying 4 small dots of CA glue, and then align this on the surface and press down. I don't want to risk zip kicker affecting the surface, so I will wait for these spots to dry naturally. Once the middle is dry, I add a drop of glue to one side, press down, wait for it to dry, and then repeat on the other side. With the screen in place, I thought the silver was too bright on the front, so I brush on some of the jet black and use a paper towel to dab it. This helps to tone down the silver. Nearing the final steps of assembly, I attach the 6 small screw heads to the screen. I put a drop of glue on the screen and use a pair of tweezers to pick up and place the screw head. Once in place, the edges of the screws can be brushed with the metallic silver. Then I age each head with just a little of the chestnut and burnt umber. And there you have it, a pair of Obi-Wan's compact macro binoculars. I hope you enjoyed this project as much as I did. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to House of Props for more amazing content. And remember, if you are building any of my builds or using any of my templates, feel free and tag me at House of Props on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, because I would really like to see your fantastic work. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.